You're listening to Now It's the News. I'm Beowulf Rockland. I spend a lot of time watching YouTube videos, but it was not until my daughter clued me into these two guys named the Vlogbrothers that I truly realized that there was something deep, educational, and fascinating and interesting out there. We're very privileged today to speak with Hank Green. He is one of the Vlogbrothers, along with his brother John Green. Hank's debut novel is an absolutely remarkable thing. That is the title. Hank, welcome to Now It's the News. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for clarifying. It's also very lovely for you to have said that my novel is an absolutely remarkable thing, which you didn't actually, but I'll just imagine that you did.
Well, let's clarify that a little bit. I know that you guys, you and John, have a healthy rivalry. Your brother John is the author of The Fault in Our Stars, and you kind of brought that into the print realm now. Did you title this book specifically so that your brother, whenever he refers to your book, will have to say, my brother has written an absolutely remarkable thing?
No. I'll be honest, the book title was not my idea. I guess it was my idea eventually. I agreed to it, but I was having a very hard time titling it, and so I had a lot of help with that.
Fair enough. I know that the titles, and often the subtitles, especially when you're dealing with nonfiction, which this is not, are often down to the publishers as opposed to the authors themselves.
Many fraught conversations, yeah.
I know, back and forth, email chains, meetings, coffee, etc., etc. So tell us how this novel demonstrates that really the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Oh, well, I mean, it's absolutely a thing. It seems so cliche, but, April in this book, I think sees herself as an antidote to fear. Her great fear is that, everyone in her society is going to succumb to fear. And that is going to make us more lonely, more insular, more suspicious, and that it will, literally be our doom. That is her great fear. And she sees herself as I can be a human. I can be a face to this thing that is happening to our world. I can be, I'm cute, I'm young, I'm small, and I'm not afraid. So maybe you should question your own fear. And I think that is sort of one of the most respectable things. One of the things that I like most about April is that she takes that responsibility so seriously. It also leads to her making lots of bad decisions. And I think probably she takes it, she maybe puts a little bit too much responsibility on herself. But yeah, I think that we really do have to confront fear right now in a way that maybe we always have had to, because it is a very dangerous thing. And I think that it has been very isolating, and it has created a lot of loneliness in our society. And it is also very easy to sell. And that's something I think we need to confront.
I tend to think that when we look at the mass movements of populism in the United States and around the globe, that at the root of it is fear and loneliness. I mean, basically, if we did, I think, a better job of reaching beyond our shells and trying to make friends or just say something nice to somebody that we didn't know, that maybe we wouldn't have ended up, and I know this is a bit hyperbolic, but at least with the type of thing that we see in terms of Brexit, what we see going on in Eastern Europe, the phenomenon of Donald Trump, I really think that eliminating loneliness and trying to breach that particular psychological wall is really critical, ultimately, maybe in a sort of butterfly effect way, to changing these sorts of mass movements that we see around the world. What do you think?
I mean, I didn't necessarily expect for us to take that left-hand turn so soon, but I'm glad we're here. But yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think the sources of this isolation and the alienation, and I think that there's an element of shame to it as well in some cases, where people feel like they haven't had the life that they expected, and they're looking for someone to blame for that, and there are easy stories to tell that might not be accurate, they might be lazy, but they might really resonate. I think that that's like important to recognize. I also think it's important to recognize that like the internet, as much as I spent a lot of time championing it and believing in its sort of fundamental goodness and even like unquestioning its good, like not questioning its goodness, it also leads to isolation and alienation and also I think sometimes like being afraid of or demonizing other people, like dehumanizing other people. And I think that one of the ways that it does that is it lets us have that feeling of contributing value to society without connecting to other people. And we're all searching for some way to feel like we are important and that we are valued by society and that we are doing something that is important. And it used to be that in order to get that, it was pretty hard to do it without having connections and without working with other people in the same physical space. And now you can feel like you are fighting a war without ever being near another person. And that like combination of being able to feel like you are making a valuable contribution without making a physical connection, I think is one of the things that we need to wrap our heads around and build structures for and teach each other that like that isn't real and that a retweet is not the same thing as being a good person and that like getting likes is not the same thing as like being liked.
Yes, Twitter activism is not the same as actual activism. We're speaking with Hank Green. He is the author of an absolutely remarkable thing, his debut novel. It seems to me that there are a lot of similarities between the early ways in which we perceive the potentialities of the internet versus the way we perceive the early potentialities of television. There were a lot of folks at the beginning saying, "Oh, this is the information superhighway in television. This was going to be the amazing new educational tool that was going to change the world." In some cases it did, but far more often, I think in retrospect, we can determine at this point that it often produced dreck. How? And you and your brother John really seem to be still optimistic folks who put forward the idea that the internet does have positive possibilities, and you demonstrate that in what you do. Is it still possible for the internet to live up to what it promised at first, and how does that stand in the face of the awful stuff and disinformation that's clearly out there?
I think that we are bad at imagining the effects of technologies generally, but we are particularly bad at imagining the effects of information tech or communications technologies because people are unpredictable. And like you can say like you can look back and say like cars are going to be better than horses and they're going to require a lot of space, and if that means we can go farther, people will move farther out and suburbs will be created, and like you can sort of predict some of that. And people did, and people made a lot of money predicting that. But it's much harder to predict like the effect of something on the scale of the printing press. And I don't think anybody knew at the time, even 50 years after the printing press became, commonly in use, had any idea the level of change that would bring. And I don't think that we are at a TV, like a radio to TV moment. I think that we're at a written word by monk scribes in like little chambers to a printing press kind of shift. And that shift was huge and really bad short term. Like it broke things, but there were wars, and like the first newspapers were dreck and they were misinformation, and journalism didn't exist, and we didn't have any of the structures. And so now we're in a new world where we have no structure for any of this. This massive tool that, is, to be clear, mostly controlled by like 3 or 4 content aggregator licensor things. And that's scary, but like we have gone through processes like this before, and I think it's probably going to get worse before it gets better.
We're going to get back to our conversation with Hank Green in just a moment, but first, I got a message just now from the good folks at LuggageTech.com. And I want you to give it a listen.
I'm Emily Kaufman, the travel mom. As a leading travel expert, I travel all the time, and I have some perfect holiday gift ideas for the traveler on your list this year. You can find high-quality suitcases, backpacks, and accessories that combine smart technology with high-quality travel products at LuggageTech.com. Their suitcases come in a variety of styles, colors, and sizes with high-tech features like a digital scale built into the handle so you know exactly how much your suitcase weighs before you leave the house, so you won't pay extra baggage fees. Also, most products at LuggageTech.com have a GPS tracking system, so you don't have to guess if your suitcase made it on the plane or not. And they have a proximity alert program, so an alarm is sounded if you walk away from your carry-on or your carry-on walks away from you. Finally, all their suitcases and backpacks have USB ports inside, so you don't have to fight for space at outlets at the airport. You can get these great gifts at LuggageTech.com.
Well, that's important information. I know a lot of people are flying around the holidays. Don't let it be any more of a pain than it has to be. Check them out at LuggageTech.com. And now back to our conversation with Hank Green. Knowing that you're likely correct in your guess that it is going to get worse before it gets better makes me want to retreat into my monastery and write on my parchment. Was that your writing process? I mean, how? I guess my question is, how digital is your process, and how much do you kind of shut everything else off as you write, or is it more of an interactive? I'm looking up things online. I'm searching up quotes, things like that. Because I know that has changed a lot over the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, I definitely have to do both, and so I have periods of time where I'm writing, but also like I'm aware that the thing that I'm writing is going to require research. So it's like it's got a setting that I'm not familiar with, or it's like a profession I'm not familiar with. And so, like, there are times when I'm writing and constantly back and forth between Google Maps or, like, a schematic of an airplane or whatever. And there are times when the software I write in lets me black everything else out, and I just see a column of text that looks like, the pages in a book. Mm-hmm. And that's more like for writing dialogue, for writing scenes between characters, or for writing things that I already know about and I'm familiar with because of, like, my expertise.
Knowing that you're likely correct in your...
Watched a lot of people go through the dramatic throes of being famous on the internet.
We're speaking with Hank Green. He is the author of the debut novel, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing. It is an interesting process, and what you go through as a writer, it's an interesting process, what we're likely to go through as a society. And I'm wondering what you think that will be. Goodness knows how long it's going to take. On the other side, because I really do believe, because I am a digital immigrant, as many folks my age are, and my daughter is a digital native, and I see many wonderful things like you guys that are out there that she watches, and I also see lots of nonsensical things that really maybe will make sense to me in another 10 years, or maybe to her will not make sense in another 10 years. Only time can tell. But what do you think on the other side of this reckoning, if this is a shift akin to the transition between scrolls and the printing press, which by the way, I think perhaps, and maybe this is only from the remove of history, was easier to identify because you can see the technology. What we're doing seems more subtle, or at least the shape of the mind that it has an impact on seems more subtle to me. But that may just be because this is what I'm going through now. Yeah. What do you think it looks like on the other side? What does the golden age of the internet, the positive golden age of the internet, look like to you?
I mean, I think probably it looks more like background. It looks more like this is a thing that we use, and we, in the same way that like a book is background, and it is just another piece of media among all of the other media. People have always been like, so when's YouTube going to kill TV? And I'm like, obviously, like TV is alive and well. It's just come through Netflix now. Like TV is a thing. It just maybe will come through a different pipe. And books are still a thing, and plays are still a thing, and storytelling is still a thing. It's all still things. We just have new ones. I think that there are there are possible outcomes